My name is Pamela. I am the founder of the Quarantine Book Club, and tonight my co-host is Susan Harper, and we are going to be chatting with Brooke Fossey. But first, I need to thank our people that are helping with the production of this, Amy and Nancy. This live event is hosted by Amy and Nancy Harrington, sisters who founded the Passionistas Project to inspire women to follow their passions. Their podcast, the Passionistas Project podcast, features interviews with a diverse group of women, from celebrity chef Susan Feniger to artist Lynn Evola, who melts down nuclear weapons to make peace angel sculptures. They have a quarterly subscription box called the Passionistas Project Pack, filled with products from women-owned businesses and female artisans. And they host their own Facebook Live events in the Passionistas Project Facebook group. You can follow them there and go to their website, thepassionistasproject.com, to learn more. And I'm so excited that tonight we have Brooke Fossey. Brooke was once an aerospace engineer, which is very exciting. She's so smart. And she had secret clearance before she traded it all in for motherhood and writing. She's a past president and an honorary lifetime member of the DFW Writers Workshop. Her work can be found in numerous publications, including Ruminate Magazine and Smoke Lawn Quarterly. Her debut novel, The Big Finish, was released by Penguin Berkeley on April 14th of this year. When she's not writing, you can find her in Dallas, Texas, with her husband, 4 kids, and their dog Rufus. And she still occasionally does math, which I think, you know, in this, if you can do math and you can write, you're like the biggest winner ever. Because I cannot do math.
Well, my math brain does not always serve me well when I'm writing stories, though. And I like to say, because I like it, because I think storytelling is this big puzzle, this big logic problem that you're trying to put together. So in that way, it's helpful to me, but it's not helpful because every story, for every equation, there's a right answer. And that's not the case with storytelling. And so I can get to the end of the scene or the end of the book and I'll be like, is this right? But there's no way to know.
No, there isn't, because readers, the whole thing with art is so subjective.
Yes.
So I'm going to start out with the questions that I ask of all the authors in the QBC. When did you start writing this particular book, The Big Finish?
This particular book I started about 4 years ago. And so it took me a year to draft, and then I did a light edit. I didn't realize I wasn't really editing. I did a light edit and I sent it out for query to agents, and I got a pretty quick response. And then my agent said, we really need to edit this. And then we spent about a year working on it together. And then when it went out for submission to publishers, it went pretty quick. But I think it's because we front loaded a lot of the work on the manuscript. So and then after that, it takes a while. Obviously, once the publisher has it, there's another edit with your editor, and then they package it. That takes time. So from start to finish, 4-ish years.
So you are a plotter. You outline things.
Oh, no. I don't plot. No.
You're just sit down and go. See where this goes.
It's also, that's also a disservice to myself, because I always get stuck and I'm like, where is this going again? Oh, that's right, I don't know. No, but I think it leads to a lot of fun, and I hope when people read The Big Finish, I hope everybody in the book club, as every scene opened up, I often surprise myself. So I hope that's also happening for readers.
Good. So you've answered a lot of these questions already, because I've known Brooke for 10 years because we were actually in the same writers group in Euless, Texas, the DFW Writers Workshop, and I met her. We were talking about it before this. I was actually, if you've read my book, which you probably haven't, but if you had, the whole reason I went to the writer's workshop is because a therapist told me I had to go because I had to learn how to read in front of people, because it was one of my biggest fears. And so I had to join a group, a social group. And Brooke was there the first night, and this was 10 years ago, and she was pregnant. She was a very slender woman with this basketball baby inside of her. And so I have heard, and Brooke, how many books have you written?
This is my 6th book. So I have several manuscripts. At least 3 of them I don't think will see the light of day. One of them I am going to pull out, and I'm gonna dust it off one day. But you're learning the craft, so it takes time, and people shouldn't see those early practice rounds necessarily. So
the vomit drafts, as I like to, I think Anne Lamott actually coined that term, but I use it. The vomit draft.
I like to liken it to, if you one day decide I'm going to play the violin, you can't play in the pit at the symphony right away, right? You've got to make these horrible noises at first, and then you practice, you learn the craft, and then you can play in the pit. So those early drafts are you making those horrible violin noises, essentially.
Yes, I've made quite a few of them myself. But I do want to ask you what you had planned for your book launch, because I was going to go. And
so I obviously had a party planned. It was all family and friends, and Michael Marshall, who actually ended up doing my online event, was going to be there for the Q&A. And then I had another public one at Half Price Books in Dallas, the flagship. And I had an event in Houston. It all got canceled. So I've pretty much washed it all from my memory because it's easier that way, less painful.
So, I mean, do you think you'll do any of that? I mean, I don't know. Things are open in Texas. Things are opening right now.
I have one in August that I have yet to hear if they're going to do it live yet. So I don't really know. And, I think they've put my name in for the Texas Book Festival, but I don't even think anyone knows what that's going to look like either. So, I'm just going to chalk this up to a very odd release, and I'll just finish my next book and it'll be different.
Is the Texas Book Festival, is that in October?
September, October, something like that. It's in the fall.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Okay. So there's one thing I want to talk to you about your book. First, I'm going to get the big, I'm going to get the big pink elephant in the room. We're going to start off with that because, in group at the workshop, I had heard snippets of this book and I didn't know the full story. And when you revealed the cover, I was like, oh, this looks like fun. This looks like an adventure with this young woman and this older man, like a road trip. And then I read the book and I was like, well, when do they go on the road trip? So while I loved the cover and I looked at the artist's other work on his website and he did an amazing job, what were your thoughts about the cover, and how much say did you get to have in that?
Well, I don't know what's the case for other authors, but I didn't have a lot of say in the cover. When they decide how they're going to market it, that's what dictates everything from the font to the colors to, everything. And so they pretty much presented it to us and they were like, here it is. And so, I think the intention is to capture the metaphorical journey that Duffy and Josie are on. And they used a major set piece, Anderson's motorcycle, to anchor it. And it is a really beautiful piece of art. The art illustrator is Guy Shields, and he's extremely talented. So I'm really glad that it is eye-catching.
It is.
It is. Yeah.
And I felt the same thing. I thought that, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I got the metaphorical aspect of it. Josie's looking to the future and he's saying goodbye to the past. But it looks really happy. And I was confused, but I agree. It's beautiful and it makes you think.
Yeah. I think you have to pay attention to the copy and try to put it together. So yes, I write a lot of stuff. I like that Venn diagram between pain and laughter. All my writing has a little bit of both because I think that's life. And so, that's what you need to expect from me as an author, probably even going forward. I like a good laugh. I like a little bit of pain. And I think if you're honest with both, it's like the human experience. So
Yeah, I still haven't not quite forgiven you for the ending. I was a little upset with that. But that we're getting some questions, but I did want to talk just a fun question that we didn't ask last week. If you were to make a movie of your book, who would you cast?
I think I would, for Duffy, I'm a Dustin Hoffman fan in a big way. And so for me, that would be who I would cast. For Carl, I don't know if there's a perfect mix, but in looks, who plays Picard on Star Trek? Help me out here.
Oh,
We all know.
somebody. I can't think of his name.
Okay, well, Patrick Stewart. Yes. Amy said that. Patrick Stewart, maybe, at least in looks. So, yeah.
Okay, who's Josie?
So Josie's a little tougher because I'm not as familiar with all the actresses that are that age, because she's a youngins, and I don't know.
Okay.
That's a terrible, I don't know.
All right. Okay.
A breakout actress that we have yet to meet. That's the answer.
Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Leslie. Which minor character is your favorite? And did that character take on a life of their own?
So minor characters, I am a big fan of Valencia. She's just a lot. And in that way, I like her. And she is based very loosely on a woman that I would see at my grandpa's assisted living. And I don't know the woman's name, but she would be all dressed up every time I came. And she would always wear sunglasses, fancy sunglasses. And she would push her friend, her little lady friend, around in the wheelchair all the time. So she was just to the nines in these sunglasses, pushing her friend around. And I thought, you are a character that belongs in a book. And I don't know personality-wise if it was a good match, but I filled in the void where there was some. And so Valencia was fun to write. Anderson is obviously a fan favorite. Strapping.
Who would you cast as Anderson?
Oh my goodness, I have not thought of that. There's a lot. Do you have an idea?
Oh, so many.
Jason Momoa.
Yes, something like that.
That worked for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'd be good. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one from Denise Miller. She writes, Brooke, I enjoyed the book. How did you come up with the theme of a nursing home? Why did you want to set your book in a nursing home?
So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back to, it was actually because I was visiting my grandpa a lot at the assisted living, and I would sit with him at his table and his buddies, and they had these fascinating stories and these full lives, and it was just kind of hidden by their age. And so that was the seed of the idea. And I would bring my 4 kids when I went to visit him, and it was chaos because I had toddlers. They were all little, and they would run around, and it was just crowd control, except they also brought a lot of joy to the facility. And so I thought, I kind of wrapped them up into Josie, and I threw her through the window and had her stay a while. And that was it. And Duffy was loosely based on my grandfather, who could be very brusque. Is that a word?
Yes.
Yes, he could be, but he was super loving. And so that's how I started with the story.
So, I mean, I think it's very cool that, because, that older people are getting a story, because you don't, at least I haven't, maybe I haven't read enough, but lots of books do not have a protagonist that is in their 80s. Is that a fair thing to say?
There are some, and I stayed away from reading them because I didn't want it to influence the way I wanted to tell a story, but there are some. I'm not the only one. Too bad.
I know you're not the only one, and you also wrote a male, as a female writer, writing an older male character. So what was harder for you, writing Josie or writing Duffy?
Duffy came very easily to me. I think maybe I speak a lot of exactly what I think in real life. And so in some ways, Duffy was easier to me. But, I find it doesn't matter whether it's a girl or boy or any ethnicity, because I think the human experience is very shared. And I mean, we realize this, of course, it doesn't matter how old you are. And so I didn't even worry about it as I wrote him. So sometimes people will ask, how did you know how he would think? And I was like, it didn't matter that he was 88. He wants to be loved. He doesn't want to die alone. Like, isn't this all what we want? So I just kind of projected my own stuff, as you do when you write.
Yeah, we're getting lots of questions here. Okay, Marilyn wrote, I timed it to finish at 6:30 this evening, so I am still tearing up.
Oh.
How did you decide? Yeah, thanks, Brooke. Wait, where did
Spoiler alert, if you haven't finished the book.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm still, how did you decide to have the gun, etc.? And am I correct that no one was actually shot?
Yes, no one was actually shot. That is correct. And how did I decide to have the gun?
Yeah.
What's that saying, when a gun shows up anywhere in a movie, you have to you expect that it'll show up again. So it came early in the story. Like I said, I'm not a plotter, and so it appeared early in the story, and I didn't know how or when it was going to be used again, but as I wrote, it kind of worked itself into the scene.
And nobody at the nursing home seemed to care that he had a gun. I mean, it was kind of...
Well, the gun is in a way symbolic. I don't know if anyone caught the fact that there was a line in there that people didn't care because the age devalued the purpose. And I think that's symbolic of what we often do with our elderly too.
Doesn't look smart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's old. I mean, what's it going to do?
Also, talk a little bit about, I know we've got other questions, but this was a hybrid living facility. It wasn't really a nursing home.
No.
It was, and there's a big difference. I don't think people often, unless you have experience with the stages, you'd go, can you do that in a nursing home? Can you have that in a nursing home? Assisted living, it's more independent. You just get a little help. And I could see that slipping by in an assisted living. If you're in a nursing home,
not
probably
so much.
not, because you wouldn't be using it if you're in a skilled nursing center.
Correct.
That would be.
Well, your belongings just continually strip away as you move along in the journey through nursing care.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was the experience with your grandpa, is that the only experience you've had with sort of assisted living nursing homes?
No, I'm Greek American. And so my grandfather lived with my mom for a long time. My great aunt lived with her. And in addition, my mom was the caretaker for a lot of elderly. So we would drive around, pick up old ladies on the way to church. I mean, I think it was part of my upbringing to the point that it doesn't even register for me, elderly versus non-elderly. So, we used to pick up this little old lady named Olive, and I would be a kid in this back seat, and she would say all sorts of funny things. And we would walk in somewhere, and my dad would hold the door for her, and she'd say, "The dust before the broom, David." And so I really value people that are well seasoned, I guess. Let's just call it that.
I feel the same way. I always liked older people, and I don't know. As a young person, I was always like, I like to hang out with older people.
They have so much perspective and stuff.
They have better stories.
They do.
Lived more, so they can tell you more stories. We have lots of questions here.
Oh, that's exciting. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Jody says she really enjoyed the book, and she wants to know, how did you transition from aerospace engineer to author? I think, tell us.
By accident, in part, by a little bit of luck, a little bit of grace. But I worked at Lockheed Martin on the JSF program, the F-35, and I enjoyed the people, but I didn't love the work. And then I started having babies. I had 4 and 5 years. And so eventually I just decided I was going to stay home. And I was really happy with the decision, except I was also slowly going insane, baby talking and changing diapers. And so I put a kid down for a nap one day, and I literally just started messing around, writing a story. And then I just couldn't stop. And it's like a late in life passion that I discovered. I'm just really grateful. I stumbled upon it almost,
You're a spring chicken, Brooke. What are you talking
Well,
about?
I mean, I don't know. If you're debuting after 40, I mean, where's that after 40 debut list? I don't see him, man.
Are you 40? Are you
Yes.
40?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you
well,
for
okay.
asking.
All right. You don't look 40.
Oh, go on.
40,
Go on.
50, 60. Yeah, we've got it all.
Okay,
We're all
so
a decade apart.
I love that. But you know what? Here's the thing, and this is also something that I think I explore in the book. You know, when my dad turned 70, I asked, how do you feel inside? And he was like, 38, 42. You know, I don't think we ever catch up with the outsides. These are we have youth suits and they eventually fade away, but what we still are, I think I'm perpetually 28-ish. And I feel like that may be the case for everybody. So
I would say 27 all the time.
Right?
Like
So,
I'm frozen.
Right, we're mentally frozen. So I feel like I explore that a lot in my book as I was writing these characters. So
I think the opposite is true with me. I'm like 80 inside. And I look 27. Right? I'm kidding. Okay.
I know where you've been this week. You do.
Okay. Okay. Brian Tracy asks, along the lines of the previous question, is there a character who resonated with you more than the others?
Resonated. Duffy is the guy that resonates with me. So
Okay.
that's why, you know, when you tell a story in first person like I did, that's the one you have to be closest to anyway, because the entire story is from the camera stuck to the top of his head as he, that was attractive. Hey guys. As he's looking around and telling his story.
So what made you want to pick, because this is a book about addiction. It's about alcoholism, and where did that come from?
You know, I needed Duffy and Josie to connect in a way that only they could. And that is a very particular shared experience. And so I went there. And, you know, we have family, we have, you know, our fair warnings of family members and stuff. So I knew enough to be dangerous probably. But I tried to treat it with a lot of respect, and I did a lot of research, and, you know, I didn't make it at the end of the week. Nothing is finished in her journey. So,
yeah, I was going to ask you, did you do any research on AA? Yeah.
I went where I found the most honest and open stuff was on a lot of forums. People are very open, and they're trying to care for each other by being open, and it's beautiful, honestly.
I agree.
Yeah.
Melissa asks, is Hangovers based on a familiar place you know? It seems like a place that would be in small town Texas.
Yes. So that's so funny. You're so right. I think it's if I were to shrink a couple bars at Texas A&M and College Station, which is where I went, it would probably be a Hangovers with the honky tonk and the wood paneling and stuff. So she's totally right. She must be a Texan.
She is. I actually know her. She's in real life book club. So yes. Let's see. Susan, do you have a couple questions you want to?
Well, I did talk about the living situation, and it was interesting. Was that kind of where your grandfather lived? Did you do research on that? Was it, because that's a really small facility?
Small facility. I shrunk it for the story out of necessity, but it was loosely based on the place that my grandfather lived, all the way down to the floor plan. I shrunk that as well. And my dad, who's also an engineer, helped make the floor plan for me. So
that's one of the first things I mentioned to Pamela was the floor plan. It's like, they would never make any money in this place. I mean, they would have shrunk down. It's like, this wasn't, I can see why Sharon was trying to make some money, because you got to keep
yes,
more people.
You know, but the shrinking is because I wanted the microcosm.
And you did it. You did a really good job. I think you got the picture of everybody. My mom lives in a senior apartment facility, so everyone is over 55, and they have the progression. So they all say, I don't want to go up on the hill. which is what the Centennial people are saying,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to go, I assume, like to a Medicaid facility or a memory
Yes.
care center or something. There's the real digging in. And you got that with the characters. I felt like they all know that's worse than hell.
The last waiting room, or however
Yes,
it's called.
God's room.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah. Going to the hill at my mom's place. He's up on the hill this week because he fell and hurt himself. So he's on the hill.
Yeah. My grandfather, he actually passed away before this was published, but I always like to tell his story because he kept his humor all the way to the end. And, I have this help me with my words,
juxtaposition
between, the pain and the humor. But my grandpa, to the very, within a week and a half of him passing, he had an infection and he was in the hospital. And I went to see him and I was massaging one of his feet and he started to wiggle the other foot and he said, "This one's jealous." And so I like to remember him like that because you can keep your humor if you want. Even through it all.
When my dad was towards the very end of his life, I used to take him to Outback Steakhouse, and my dad had Alzheimer's. So he didn't like to talk because he'd get very frustrated. So we'd play gin rummy, and he could beat me at gin rummy, but he couldn't remember my name or my kid's name. And towards the very end, he said, "I don't want to eat steak." And that was like, what? Because my dad loves steak. And I was like, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, well, do you want ice cream? And he goes, "Well, who doesn't?" So I'm like, okay, we're having ice cream for dinner then.
That's happening.
Yep. All right. We have another question from Amanda. Is there a town in Texas the book is based on? I was trying to put it in context what it is like. Large enough to have a fancy French restaurant at the very least. Would love to have been at that lunch, by the way.
I love that lunch too. I know that town is 100% in my head. So sorry to disappoint you. There's nowhere to visit.
Oh.
I kind of saw it in the hill country down, like, I don't know, San Angelo, Mason, that whole, for some reason, I don't know why, but.
I love small Texas towns, so.
Okay. Here's one from Esther. She writes, "Duffy was such a sweet character. I love his crush on Alice. Did your grandfather ever crush on anyone that you remember on your visits with him?"
Oh my. No, in fact, my grandma passed away when I was a little younger, and then he got remarried, and they were still married even when he was in the facility. And they lived in Florida, and he came to Dallas to live with my mom when he started getting very sick. And then when he moved to the facility, she was still in Florida. So anyway, he was married, but she wasn't in town.
So no crushes.
No crushes.
Just on his wife.
That would be true.
Okay, Linda wrote, "Did you know how the book would end when you started, or did it evolve as you wrote?"
So I knew-ish how it would end. When I write, I have a cinematic scene in my head, which is somewhere in the book. And that's usually the seed for the rest of everything where it grows. And so I had one table scene, and that's all I had when I started the book. And it was a table with them bantering. And then I did know how I wanted it to end, but I didn't know how I was going to get there or why. And so that's how loose I roll. It's very, very scary as I open blank pages.
So you kind of start in the middle then. Is that right?
I do. I have a few cinematic things that it's almost like a movie trailer that I see when I have an idea. And I think that it lends itself to, as I see it and I write it, it's a cinematic thing happening in my head.
So do they make book trailers anymore?
I don't think so. I have no idea. Yeah.
We did in my classroom.
Oh, really? Susan was taught for a very long time. She was well, I'll let you tell what you did.
I taught gifted and talented, so I taught everything. So I taught the people like Brooke, who were mathy and languagey, and or a little bit of both or neither. But I had kids that loved to read, and I had kids that hated to read. But I also had to teach them writing. So that was, I always tried to get them to think like a movie when they're reading and think like a movie when they're writing, and make book trailers. And they loved to do that. And it got easier as my career went on because they had the technology. I'll never forget, we got the first VCR camera that was like this big, that on shoulders, and it was bigger than them.
Did they have that on one arm and a boombox on the other?
No, one other kid had the boombox. There was nobody big enough to carry both of those cameras.
So did they actually make something that you could watch, or
yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Several of them posted in toward the end. There was YouTube that everybody could get on, but we had to be really careful about using YouTube. We used TeacherTube at school.
Yeah.
And the librarian was good. But book trailers are great. And I look at everything when I'm reading a book as the teacher. And what would the kids think? That's like the conversation about the book cover. Because I would set aside a whole day to talk about your book cover if they were reading that book. Because we could do it. Thought it was good. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Linda. Okay, we already got Linda. Jennifer J. Chow said, I really love the setting and the older characters. Okay, at the very end, there's another day of activities on the calendar for the home. Is there significance to that?
Oh, good question, Jennifer. Yes, for me, it's more of a life goes on moment. I don't know if in Steel Magnolias, I don't know if y'all have seen that, but there is that moment at the end of Steel Magnolias, and it's beautiful to me. And so that was kind of it. Here on Earth, life goes on.
I always remember hit Weezer.
Yes.
We have one on the Facebook page too from Daniel. Since you create in cinematic scenes, do you use storyboards to piece your book together, or do you just cross your fingers and hope for the best?
Storyboards would make my life easier, Daniel, wouldn't it? I apparently am very set in my ways. No, when I get far enough into the book, I shouldn't make it sound so freewheeling. I do start drawing my arcs, I start saying, okay, I've done this. Here's another tent pole transition. And then I start leaning into what would be a 5-act structure or a 3-act structure or the hero's journey. So I do come to a point where I have to rely on some of those patterns of storytelling.
Okay, we have a question from Amber, who wrote, I appreciated that Duffy felt like he had wasted his life, in large part due to his addiction, but finally found some redemption late in life by paying it forward and really living out step 12. Not really a question, but kind of a comment about that. The whole alcoholism is, I was very surprised by that in the book, and I commend you for going there because, do you think Josie's going to be okay?
I think if I were to continue to write her story, that she's going to fall a few more times. But obviously, we all hope for any hero of a story to end up okay. So in the end, let's make her okay. She's fictional. That would be the best way, right?
How about Anderson and Josie? Are they going to stay together, or do
so
you think?
I don't want to ruin people's feelings about that, but I actually don't see them. I see them better apart. So
Me too.
I think Anderson took care of his dad long enough that
he served his time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I were to write a sequel, which I am not, so I think they would give it a go and discover that would be part of their journey.
Yes, because to him, Josie probably feels like home because it's very familiar to him.
It's
being the caregiver and taking care of someone. That's, you know. So I think they would be drawn to each other, but
Right.
probably may not be the best fit.
Right.
Do
Yeah,
you
the
have any-
manipulate the language.
we do have
I
another.
got one from Melissa.
Yes, go ahead.
Did I lose you?
I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear y'all.
Okay.
Melissa said, Nora was my favorite. You can tell that Carl and Duffy didn't want to disappoint her and counted on her. Was she meant to know a lot more of what was going on with the drama at Centennial than what the characters thought?
I think Nora was a very intuitive character. And so was she meant to know more? I guess I don't understand the question.
She meant to know a lot more of what was going on with the drama.
The drama.
I think she knew about the drama. Josie in the room, maybe.
To a point. I think Nora was a caring and intuitive nurse and friend to them. But I don't think she knew everything.
You don't think she knew about them in the room? Okay.
Would have been hard to hide her, but they did it. So, Brooke, what are you writing about now?
Oh, well, so because of my freewheeling pantser tendencies, it is still cooking, and I fear saying too much because it might change. But I can say that it has soap operas in it, in part. And I think it's almost a small homage to soap operas. My great grandmother learned English by watching soap operas. And so it wasn't in a little way passed down to the family. I never really watched them, but that has been the seed of an idea. And I have one scene that came to me, a construction worker who is in a tuxedo showing up for work. And these are the two things that I've put together to start my book.
And we'll see where that goes. Did your did your grandmother speak very dramatically, like she was in a soap opera?
No, my great grandmother.
Your great grandmother.
No, her English never got very good. So,
I just remember as a child, my stepmom watched a lot of soap operas, and I remember General Hospital and Luke and Laura's Wedding. That was like this.
Luke and Laura's Wedding. My mom was a big Guiding Light fan, and so I'm just kind of weaving a woman who loves soap operas into a storyline. So we'll see.
What's her favorite? So who's?
Oh, I actually am going through every soap opera.
So you're watching them?
I've been watching a few segments. Some of them are very hard. It's a dying art. And I'm going to call it an art. I've actually grown to appreciate it as I've been writing this novel. But some of that's disappeared. You can't get any of it. All these seasons. It's been 80 years of soap operas, starting with the radio. And now only a few are left. So it's so interesting.
I have friends that are mourning the demise of, is it General Hospital that's going off the air after all this time? Yeah. I think it's General Hospital that's ending. Yeah. I never got into them. My mom watched Peyton Place. Does that tell you how old I am? I watched Peyton Place. Yeah.
Okay, Alan asked, how long did the full project take from that first cinematic scene in your head to today? You said 4, was it
4.5 years? Yeah.
Yeah. So this new book, how much time are you allowing yourself to write this next book with the soap operas?
I am trying my darndest. Quarantine has obviously thrown a wrench in it because I started homeschooling 4 kids and they continue to be around. I don't know whose idea it was to have all these children. They're quite a bother. I'm doing my best. I think I'm a little behind, but it's okay. I mean, I'm actually setting my alarm early, and when they go to bed, I try to squeeze in an hour or so. So,
do you have more creativity in the morning or at night?
I think I was conditioned because I used to write during their nap times. I'm conditioned to catch my writing time whenever I can. And so for me, that truly means I've dropped a kid off at a practice and I don't want to drive home and I'm in my car with the worst ergonomics writing. It doesn't matter to me. Honestly, as long as I have a quiet room, I'm good to go.
So no music, nothing. And you're right.
No music. In fact, because I also went to workshop with you and we do a lot of aloud reading, I can't go to coffee shops or anything because I read aloud a lot as I'm working through and I look like a crazy person. So I need a quiet room by myself.
Yeah. That's, I mean, if there's any writers, I know there's a few writers out there. I think it is so important to read your words out loud because
Yes.
then you catch, oh, that sounds really weird rather than just reading it.
Mm-hmm.
We got another question.
Just put your earbuds in, though. Just put your earbuds in and read to yourself. And they don't know that you're not talking to somebody on the phone, you know, that you're not having a conversation with someone.
I know. I'm a mental case. Like one of my kids can walk through the room and I'm like, I'm out of this story. Oh, now I have to start over. So
Oh,
We
gosh.
have more. Oh, here are some ideas for casting. We have Marilyn thinks that Chris Sullivan, who plays Toby on This Is Us, would be a good Anderson.
oh.
And Donald Glover is Amber's pick for Anderson, even though he's a bit older than Anderson.
Okay. I like that.
Hmm. Okay.
Let's see.
So, do you read a lot, Brooke?
Yeah, I read every night. I'm a slow reader, but I read every night. And sometimes I only make it through 3 or 4 pages, but I can't go to bed without having read. So.
Have you been doing a lot of reading during the quarantine, or has this just been homeschooling children?
And it's been tough. My reading has taken a hit. I am even slower than normal.
Yeah, I can relate.
I'm sorry. I feel for you. I really do. I don't know how parents have kept that up and do that. I am in total admiration for what it's taken for you all to do that since March.
Everybody is bearing some sort of cross during this quarantine.
Yeah,
so
they are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was bad with like one teenager. And
I'm gonna drop mine off, Pam.
How old are yours, Brooke? Tell us.
We actually had 2 birthdays in the last week. So I have a 14, a 12, a 11, and a 10. Is that right? I don't know. We just had 2 birthdays, so I'm all screwed up.
Wow. So
Is
you
the
have
12
a house full of hormones. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a house full of hormones. Is the 12-year-old, are they girls or I don't know?
No, I have girl, boy. And the 12-year-old's going to be 13 in a couple weeks. So, yeah.
You're moving into the fun times, let me tell you.
I bet you guys can guess. Once I finish this book, there's going to be some themes about hormones, probably. I don't know.
Yep. All right. Do you have any other questions, Susan, for Brooke?
Let's see. Well, I felt like the aging topic was interesting. You've addressed that
Online at the online discussion, and I wanted to say I really appreciate how thoughtful everybody on the quarantine book club. They had such thoughtful answers, and for a writer, that's really meaningful because it means that people have like seen some of the things that you intended. Because you never know. But thanks, guys out there.
Thanks for interacting with us on the book club too. That was,
Yes, we
everybody
appreciate
appreciates
it.
that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the book club. I mean, I love supporting debut authors. I think it's fun to talk to everybody because each writer is different and every story is different. And so I appreciate you coming into the QBC for an hour tonight. And
yes, 100%. I am glad to be here.
so Brooke's book is The Big Finish.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this beautiful cover right here.
Metaphorical cover, as we discussed.
Yes, there's big meaning in this cover, and you could write, you could write about it.
Spine. I love the spine.
Yes, because it has them divided.
They're divided.
I didn't realize that.
I told you we deeply analyzed the cover in elementary school, and I felt like that helped me to understand the cover.
Well, I think the Quarantine Book Club is fantastic, and I almost feel like it should support debut authors when the world's upside down, which, by the way, means it can go on forever because, whether, truly, there's always something in the news cycle.
And I think our world has changed forever. I think when your next book debuts, people will show up with a mask. I think that I think the world has changed forever in a lot of ways. I think that social distancing is okay. Introversion is okay.
I'm coming for hugs. I'm coming for hugs when they say it's okay.
I miss hugs. Oh, that's what I miss the most.
We've got some books to give away. Brooke's publisher is giving out a copy of Happy and You Know It by Laura. Let's see, now I can't read.
I think it's Hankin.
Hankin. And then we have Minor Dramas and Other Catastrophes by Kathleen West. So we're going to spread the love. And so if you took a selfie with Brooke's book, you're in the bag here. I'm going to pick out the winner for Happy and You Know It. And that lucky person is Jody Wise.
Oh, yay, Jody.
And then for Minor Dramas and Other Catastrophes, Lisa Cavill, Bielss. I don't want to mess up saying her last name, Beals, but that's how it's spelled.
Yay.
So you win Minor Dramas and Other Catastrophes. So
yay, Jody. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody. You're a winner. Winner. Yay. And I just want to remind everybody that we are doing the bonus book. One of my coworkers at the library where I work at, we were going to interview Grady anyway in October, but he's like, let's just do it now. So I said, okay. So if you've read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, Grady's going to be here just like this on Wednesday, but I think we're doing it earlier. I think it's 6 to 7, but it's on the event page. My brain's fried. Thank you, Brooke, so much for joining us. Thank everyone for the questions. And,
yes, thank you.
And thank you, Susan and Amy and Nancy, for making this all possible. You all are the best.
And you, Pamela, for everything.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
You're welcome. So have a good night, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.